Welcome to Religion Unpacked. The Great Flood. Why do all cultures have this myth? The sky turns pitch black. The rain begins to fall, not in drops, but in sheets of crushing water. The rivers overflow, the oceans rise, and the mountains are swallowed by the waves. In a matter of days, the entire world is wiped clean. Everything that breathes is dead. Except for one family, floating on a massive wooden boat, carrying the seeds of a new world. We all know this story. It is the story of Noah's Ark. For billions of people, it is the ultimate tale of divine judgment and human salvation found in the book of Genesis. But what if I told you that Noah is not the only survivor of this ancient apocalypse? What if the exact same story was told by ancient Babylonians, Greeks, Hindus, and even Native American tribes? Why does almost every ancient culture on Earth share a memory of a catastrophic global flood? Did the entire planet actually drown? Or is there a scientific explanation behind this universal nightmare? Today we are diving into the deep waters of history. We will read ancient clay tablets, explore the end of the Ice Age, and uncover the real meaning behind the most famous disaster story ever told. Let's unpack the mystery of the Great Flood. First, let's look at the biblical account. In the book of Genesis, humanity has become completely corrupt and violent. God's heart is broken by his own creation. He decides to hit the reset button. He uncreates the world by opening the windows of heaven and the fountains of the deep. He chooses one righteous man, Noah, and commands him to build an ark. After 40 days and 40 nights of rain, the earth is submerged. Eventually, the water recedes. Noah sends out a raven and then a dove to find dry land. When the dove returns with an olive leaf, Noah knows they are saved. God puts a rainbow in the sky as a promise never to destroy the world with water again. It is a beautiful moral story about sin, obedience, and a fresh start. For centuries, the Western world believed this was the only original account of the flood. But in the year 1872, an amateur Assyriologist named George Smith was working in the British Museum. He was translating a broken clay tablet found in the ruins of Nineveh in modern-day Iraq. The tablet was part of an ancient Sumerian poem called the Epic of Gilgamesh. It was written centuries before the first word of the Bible was ever penned. As Smith translated the cuneiform symbols, he could not believe his eyes. The tablet told the story of a man named Utnapishtim. The gods decided to destroy the world with a flood because humans were being too noisy. One god, Enki, secretly warned Utnapishtim and told him to tear down his house and build a giant boat. He was told to pitch the boat with tar and bring the storm raged, destroying humanity. When the boat landed on a mountain, Utnapishtim sent out a dove, a swallow, and finally a raven. When George Smith read this, he was so shocked that he jumped up and started running around the room, tearing off his clothes in excitement. He had just discovered that the story of Noah's Ark was not completely unique. It had older Mesopotamian roots. But the mystery doesn't stop in the Middle East. If we travel to ancient India, we find the story of Manu. A giant fish, an avatar of the god Vishnu, warns Manu that a devastating deluge is coming. The fish tells him to build a boat. When the floodwaters rise, the giant fish tows Manu's boat to the top of the Himalayas. If we go to ancient Greece, we find the story of Deucalion and Pyrrha. Zeus, disgusted by human cannibalism, unleashes a massive flood. Deucalion, warned by his father Prometheus, builds a chest and floats for 9 days until landing on Mount Parnassus. If we cross the ocean to the Americas, the Maya and the Aztecs have their own flood myths. The gods become angry with the first generation of humans, who were made of wood and lacked souls, and wash them away in a torrent of black rain. Anthropologists have cataloged over 200 different flood myths from cultures all around the globe. From the indigenous tribes of North America to the Aboriginal peoples of Australia. How is this possible? How could people who never met, separated by vast oceans, tell the exact same story? There are two main ways to answer this question. The first is historical and geological. Did a global flood actually cover the highest mountains on Earth? Geologically speaking, there is not enough water on the planet to cover Mount Everest. But to an ancient farmer living in a river valley, The whole world was just the land he could see to the horizon. If his valley flooded, his whole world had literally drowned. Many scientists point to the end of the last ice age, around 10,000 to 8,000 BC. As the massive glaciers melted, global sea levels rose dramatically, by hundreds of feet. Coastal cities, ancient settlements, and hunting grounds were swallowed by the ocean. This was not a 40-day rain, it was a slow, terrifying, and unstoppable rise of the waters. This generational trauma of losing the coastline could have been burned into the collective memory of humanity, passed down through oral traditions. Another fascinating scientific theory is the Sea Deluge Hypothesis. Proposed by marine geologists William Ryan and Walter Pittman, this theory focuses on the year 5600 BC. At that time, the Black Sea was a small freshwater lake surrounded by fertile farming communities. But as the Mediterranean Sea rose, it eventually broke through the Bosphorus land bridge. The seawater rushed into the Black Sea basin with the force of 200 Niagara Falls. The water level rose 6 inches a day. Villages were destroyed instantly. The people who survived fled in all directions, into Europe, Asia, and the Middle East. According to this theory, these refugees carried the terrifying story of the Great Flood with them, planting the seed for the myths of Gilgamesh and Noah. Locally, the Tigris and Euphrates rivers in Mesopotamia are notorious for sudden, violent, and unpredictable flooding. A massive river flood in the ancient city of Shuruppak around 2900 BC left a thick layer of sediment that archaeologists have actually found. To the survivors clinging to debris, it would have felt like the gods were angry. But there is a second way to understand the flood myth: the psychological and theological angle. Why water? Why not fire or earthquakes? In ancient cosmology, water represents chaos. It is the primordial state of the universe before creation. In Genesis chapter 1, the Spirit of God hovers over the dark, chaotic waters to create life. The flood is a reversal of creation. It is the chaos returning to swallow the order. Psychologically, water cleanses. It washes away dirt, disease, and the mistakes of the past. The flood myth is the ultimate expression of our human desire for a do-over. When our societies become too corrupt, too violent, or too far gone, we dream of a great washing. We dream of wiping the slate clean and starting over with a pure, innocent seed. This is the same symbolism used in the Christian sacrament of baptism, dying in the chaotic water and rising as a new creation. So what are we to make of the Great Flood? It is likely that a massive catastrophic water event, or a series of them at the end of the Ice Age, left a permanent scar on the human psyche. The Babylonians remembered it as the capriciousness of the gods. But the Hebrew writers of the Bible took this ancient, terrifying memory and completely transformed its meaning. In the biblical story, the flood isn't an accident, and it isn't because humans were too noisy. It is a deeply moral event. It is about justice and mercy. And most importantly, it ends with a promise, a rainbow, a covenant that no matter how dark the world gets, the ultimate goal of the Creator is not destruction, but preservation. The story of the Great Flood is the oldest shared memory of the human race. It is a reminder of our vulnerability before the forces of nature and our enduring hope for a second chance. And that is the mystery of the Great Flood, Unpacked. Thank you for watching Religion Unpacked. Subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss a new upload.